Hello there. My name is Gard Dringle, and I love telling stories. What's your name, sir?
My name's
we do these, the more
El
I struggle.
Storyteller.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
nice, that. Guard duty. It's going to be West Country accents every single time.
It is,
because
yeah,
it's the only one we can safely do because it's the culture that we come from.
Yeah, it's true.
we don't want to be going too crazy over here.
I've experimented with northern accents before, and like it always defaults to being a pirate West Country accent.
Really?
No matter how long. Within 3 sentences, I'm back to Yarr! To Captain Barbossa, basically. Like,
I'm a little busy right now.
yeah, exactly.
We're doing the monkey jack. Yeah, amazing. Guard duty, or maybe not guard duty. Who knows what this is right now?
It's a formless episode.
It's a formless, primordial soup of ideas where we are going to discuss storytelling.
Yeah.
Which is, a big thing for anybody that DMs or writes stories like me or writes songs like Sam.
And you before.
And me before. I've been around. I try and blush under the carpet, but
I know you do. But you were great. You were great.
We've played music before here.
I loved it.
So, what is a story? Whoa.
It's a huge question.
Story is so much. It's so much. Story is life. I think actually existence is a story. You just living, your narrative, which you tell you as you live day to day, is a story. I don't think you can perceive life in any way which is not actually a story.
It's true.
That's my opinion on that.
No, I agree. And actually, I'm going to go really conceptual here before we start talking about how we can tell stories. Companies are stories. They're fictions. We made them up. So there's this awesome book. And honestly, it's great. All I can say is it's great. Yeah. And I've only read the introductory chapter 3 times. And I love it every time. And it's a game changer for my mind. But I just never quite get there. It's called Sapiens. And it's a really good book. Really good book. One thing he talks about.
Pretty good anyway.
Great in there, is he talks about Peugeot, the car company.
Right.
And it being a collective fiction that we all agree Peugeot exists, and we've made Peugeot exist into it's a limited liability company. So if somebody Peugeot's CEO, Peugeot's owner, does something dastardly, they are liable, not Peugeot. And if Peugeot does something, Peugeot is liable, but not the person. So it's effectively an entity unto itself, which is totally fictional. We've made it up.
Mad.
But we all believe it exists, so we give Peugeot incredible power. It has tax relationships to it. It employs loads of people worldwide. People associate with the actual brand of Peugeot, adverts of Peugeot.
This is not the place I thought this discussion would go.
I thought I'd throw in a curveball straight away. I thought I'd throw in a curveball. But the point is we tell ourselves stories in society all the time. Money's a story. Money's made up. We just made up money because saying, I'm going to give you this many clams for this many sardines wasn't an efficient way of trading. It was the best way is to go, let's set a unitary value to sardines and clams and then trade based on that. We tell each other stories all the time. And some of that is heritage. I think is a really interesting one. One for my dad said, it sounds completely ridiculous, but my dad's family many generations ago were Irish, and I have some little kernel of kind of relationship with that, even though it was my great grandfather who was Irish. So I'm not in any way particularly Irish. I only went recently. But like my dad telling me the narrative of like, your name comes from Ireland. You are we are an Irish family in
the story
history.
Of your lineage, I guess.
The story of our lineage. And I think that's a really interesting thing. It's not just about songs. It's about who
you are, your unique story. You are a group of stories. You are you are an amalgamation of stories. Your life is a story. Yeah, gosh, that's so deep. So deep. I love that we went that deep though, but and we play D&D. But stories are so important. I think the stories we tell ourselves are really important as well. There's loads of it that comes into it. We were talking about like oral histories and like just now before the video started, we were talking about Somalia and that they have like such a interesting and in-depth oral history, and so many places over the world as well. Like there's so much has been passed down through stories. Brothers Grimm. Brothers Grimm, Arabian Nights, these collections of stories from cultures that are all have morals, or they have a moral telling, or
what's they fables, right? They're along the lines of fables.
Allegory is the word, isn't it? The didactic, right? Has a message. Inside the thing. Sure, yeah, sounds right. Sounds about right. But yeah, like that's what stories are as well. Every lesson your parents teach you, good or bad, is a story.
Yeah, that's true.
They're telling you this happened to me. A lot of my upbringing was this happened to me. Terrible decision that was.
Yeah,
don't do it yourself. That in itself is a story. I did this. This happened. Don't do that. Stories.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Now I think, if we can pull it away from the purely existential, we went to straight away, and I put us there.
So we've laid the groundwork for this discussion, exactly. Right?
Let's think about methods of storytelling, because I think there's so many ways. Now, you mentioned poetry already, which is an amazing medium, and was like a really pervasive medium still is, but was very significant for hundreds, thousands of years. I think songs for me are such an important storytelling aspect. For background, my dad is a singer-songwriter. So I grew up hearing him tell stories on the stage with music, with guitar. And actually, that's how our friendship started, which I think is a really interesting thing. Is I put a post out on Facebook. We knew each other acquaintancy before, and saying, look, I'm looking to play some music with people. Is anybody interested in getting involved? And you commented and went, yeah, sound, man, let's go.
Let's do it.
And then we messaged, we chatted, and we hit it off really big time.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Doing what,
like
together.
9 years later now?
Such a long time.
That.
I've been where I am for, I nearly dox myself. I've been in the city that I'm in for like 7 years. We've been friends for longer than that by a bit.
That's mad.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, a while.
Crazy.
That's a story.
That is a story. There you go.
And what are you trying to? Let's get from the max to the min. Let's zoom in. What, like, in the process of writing a song? How do you come about telling a story in your songs? I know that's
it's a good question. So I think there's a few ways you can do this, and there's many ways you can. But this is one I go for personally. Is I often write the chord progression to a song on guitar first.
Music first.
And then I play that and see how that makes me feel. And it might be that piece makes me feel a certain way. There's a certain bit that sounds kind of melancholy and sad, and that just sings to me that it's a song about bereavement or remembering an ex or something like that.
It like triggers something in you, right? Yeah, like it's an emotional response, and then you follow that.
Exactly that.
Awesome.
And then you find words that fit your purpose. The other way is to go, I'm going to write a song about bereavement. And then you go, I'm going to find a way to tell that story. Both have merits. Now, my dad told me a really interesting one he has, which is, he used to do this quite a lot, which is he'd take a newspaper and he'd find words he liked and he'd snip them out, and then he'd rearrange them into lyrics, and then he'd use that to make a song.
I've heard of people doing that. Actually,
that's a really cool way. It's a really cool way of doing things.
Sounds nuts though.
It sounds
like it would be so hard.
Also, who buys newspapers anymore?
Yeah,
it's an old school
pops.
thing. Yeah,
what you doing buying newspapers? Yeah,
but there's lots of ways you can go about it, and sometimes there's a story that is like you want to talk about something. So one thing I can think about is I wrote a song called "The Beach of Camlin," which was a cool song. Really liked it.
I do love that song.
It's a cool song, and the reason I said that is because I read the book. Oh, what's the book actually called? It's a Bernard Cornwell book. It's about King Arthur. It's his take, historical fiction on King Arthur. There's a bit on the beach of Camlin. It's really sad, and like Arthur sails away, and he leaves behind like his crew, basically, his knights. And I cried on the bus. I literally cried on the bus at how beautiful the moment was in
There's
the book
that
and how well
power
written
of
it was.
storytelling.
Exactly, and the story I was like, I have to tell this story as a song. I have to do it because it's just so the emotion I felt I wanted to impart to other people because it was so visceral.
Yeah.
There's loads of ways. Now I know you've written songs before as well, and I know you said you kind of stray away from talking about that too much now, but like, how did you approach storytelling? Because you had a whole get up.
Yeah, I had like a whole get up. I had like a persona. It was interesting. I like with my songwriting. I think I did like the character thing. Quite a lot of people do this. I think they make like a character and then so I made like a character, the Gutter Rat King, and then I like pursued that and just stories about who this character was, which was like a reflection for the kind of life I was living, which was a bit debaucherous and a bit like melancholy and a bit very depressed and just kind of navigating quite a harsh world, which was cool. Like, but that's cool, what storytelling was for me. It was a massive outlet. I used to write poetry a lot back then as well, and the poetry was a massive emotional outlet. Like stories are that for me. I think at the crux of it is that you can get out what you're feeling. And through a good story or through... And a poem is a story and a song is a story. If you can do it well enough, if you can convey what you're saying well enough, you can awaken that in somebody else. And you can then, through the sharing of that story, connect to that emotion together. And that's the beauty of storytelling. Like, who's read a great book and you finish it and you're like, I wish it never ended. Because I just loved that so much. Like, I just loved it. Like, and now it's ended. It's bittersweet because it was such a great ending and I loved it, but now I'm without these characters and I have to say goodbye to them, and I love these characters so much. Like, that's the power of a good story. Yeah. A good story can teach you things as well. Like, I read books all the time and I see characters that are going up against, they have great fears or they have great flaws, and how they overcome their flaws shows me how I could approach overcoming my own flaws. That's also the power of a great story. I think stories are so important. You can tell by being a songwriter and being an actor, and then also now writing books and being a DM, that I think stories are great.
Yeah, as you should.
Yeah, as you should. And I think everyone does. Everyone watches TV, right? Everyone watches TV. Everyone watches a show. Even if you're watching reality TV, like Meeting the Kardashians or Love Island, it's still a narrative.
It is 100%.
Yeah, the people inside that will still be structuring that in a narrative that is got a beginning, middle, and end, so that you can follow it through. There will be conflict. Obviously, conflict's massive when it comes to storytelling. A lot of storytelling is conflict and then resolving conflict. Yeah, there's so many different mediums to do it. I think. I don't know if this podcast is one where we sit down and go, how do you tell a good story? It doesn't seem to be that way. This seems to be more of just a kind of like how important stories are. But I think you can do so much of a story. If you're talking about novels are like the most ridiculous labour of love in the whole world. They take years to write, unless you're Stephen King, and then you can write one in every 6 months. But that guy's inhuman, and it's just ridiculous. But you. Like, there's also such a structure to storytelling. The more you get into... I'm sure you find this with songs as well, Sam. There's a structure to songs.
There is, yeah.
There's archetypes. There's certain chords, for example. Like you said, you make the song and it has a certain feel because the music itself is giving it that feel, and therefore that will change the way you write it. Like, when you get more into storytelling, and if you're DMing, if you're here from a TTRPG point of view, you'll see this in DMing as well. Like, there's structures to storytelling. And... learning what those structures are and utilizing those structures and archetypes is, you can't go wrong, because storytelling's been around for so long that so much of storytelling has been mapped out. Like, so much of songwriting, for example, has been mapped out. Like, there's no new chords on a guitar.
No.
They've all been found. No
Exactly.
one finds a new chord and goes, here's a new chord. And isn't it like in music, like most songs are made up of the same 4 chords or something like that?
Yeah, there's just loads of things that, like, it's the same idea, it's the same chord, it's the same scale, and like you vary parts of it, and you staple together 2 bits or seamlessly add 2 scales together. And you get to the point of like Amazing Musicians where they can use discordancy, where it doesn't fit as a method of telling the story and like expression, which is really like
you can do the same type of thing in novels as well.
Exactly.
That's like the mark of a master, isn't it?
Yes.
In any type of field, is knowing the rules and then when to break them. Is like a real like you are at the top of your game now, because you know the conventions and you know when you can stray away from the conventions and it not upset the actual product itself or what you're trying to create.
Now, to zeroing in on storytelling in TTRPGs, so tabletop role-playing games, D&D, that sort of thing, when you set out to make your campaign, often something that people do is they set out a kind of core conflict. And sometimes that core conflict is your whole story. So it's good versus evil is the core conflict. I had a weird one. So when my latest D&D campaign, Cyberpunk Reloaded, which is our second installment, I knew I wanted a big epic space opera scale, like elder gods versus mega powerful people. I wanted that to be the conflict, but I wanted this micro theme to be about wealth and disparity. And on the planetary level, whenever we went to planets, I kind of mentally was like, how can I show that there are powerful, wealthy, well-off people, and then the opposite of that, people who are impoverished, people who are starved of certain things, neglected. And I really cognitively decided I would put that in because I thought it was an interesting theme. Is there any theme that in your stories or your let's go for your campaigns, is there any theme you've set out to explore?
Yes, I will try and quantify it.
Okay.
Not because it's crazy and unquantifiable, but just because I'm just want to find the right words.
Yeah, you want to get your thoughts in order. I understand that.
It would be very much the similar of Tolkien, where it's like the bravery of those that are the weakest, or like the greatness in those that are not small, or those that are like small. Basically, a lot of my campaigns, I start off really low and you are just a normal person, and then by the end you've had to make so many sacrifices and so much like difficult decisions that that you've changed as a person and you've grown. And I like to show, because my campaigns are always such high crazy like stakes, that I like to show, like I like to mess with ethics a lot. I like to show people through. I know this might say, people might be like, "Oh, this game sounds like torture," but it's so interesting to like through my campaigns to show that ethics is a really difficult thing, and that though we may think in our lives that we are ethically superior to our fellow man, when we are put into difficult situations, it becomes very apparent that we are human and we will make ethical mistakes. And I love showing that because I think that's such a human thing, that kind of like want to be ethically sound and not. So like the example, we've said this in a podcast before, but like you've got a choice. It's always the railroad choice. Like you save these people, but you leave these people to the dust, basically. And it's always done better than that. That's really simplified, so it may sound a bit crass, but those things of like the leaders that we have in this world, and even the great leaders that we have in this world, have made terrible decisions. Do you know what I mean? People will look back at the Roman Empire and be like, wow, all this innovation and all this, like the roads across the known world, how incredible. But they also had a Colosseum where people fought to the death, and there was also vast amounts of slavery and also terrible things that were happening at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So I try and keep that in the stories of like, there are great people, but even the great people have had to do awful things. But that doesn't necessarily make them bad. Maybe real, it does.
It makes
Who knows?
It makes them real. It's a question, isn't it? And I always thought that one of the biggest themes in your campaigns is sacrifice, which you did mention. Yes. You really love the heroic sacrifice motif, don't you?
Sure.
Which I also love as well. The moments of your character having to set aside what they thought was right, or help one person but they can't help someone else, like you were saying, really it's emotionally complex. It's really emotionally complex, and it's a great story, as we were saying. It's a great story.
Sacrifice is the highest form of love. So, like, when you're making a campaign like that, and you're right, that's a really good note, because that is massively. It probably comes a lot from my faith, but like, I think sacrifice is so beautiful, and like watching you guys around the table and being like, I dive in the way, and you just throw away this character that you've had for years just to save a friend, and everyone's just weeping at the table because you were just doing these. And that, I always try to make situations where that was possible. So when I play, I'm always like, I want to do really cool things. I want to do this awesome heroic deeds. So a lot of my DMing as a storyteller, as I'm DMing a story, is how can I set up situations for my players. So basically, how can I pitch the ball in a way that they can knock it out the park every time? So a lot of my DM storytelling is that, like, setting up the scenario and letting them.
It works a treat. Told some incredible stories.
We have, yeah, we really have
incredible stories.
Yeah,
it is beautiful, and I think you can explore a lot about yourself through the lens of different characters. In D&D and like TTRPG games where you take on a persona. I know I had some points. I've mentioned this character before, but this character called Belladonna de Marquez, who was absolutely awesome. She was such a cool character.
She was great.
She was a bit of a Van Helsing style inquisitor lady. But she was really dark, and actually I'm really quite an empathetic person.
Yeah.
It took a toll on me. It really took a toll on me.
You actually took the character home, didn't you?
You did. I really took it home, and like I found it really difficult to not be emotionally affected by the stories we were telling, and they were incredible. But there's some points I was like, I'm finding this actually hard. I remember messaging you, being like, man, I'm finding this difficult. And you were like, it's just D&D though, man. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
You're right.
I'm finding it so hard.
Yeah.
But being able to tell that story is really cool. You can, like, also the way she was really like snipey, and she was a zealot. That was her main trait. She was like a massive religious zealot, and she was pretty harsh and ruthless. And I'm not those
harsh
things.
Or ruthless in any way.
At all. I'm just not at all. So it was really interesting to explore that as a complete opposite to my actual personality. And I thought I was really exciting. I loved it, but I reached a point where I was tired of it then, which was conveniently at a time when she could die, and she did.
Yeah. I think that's my next explore as well. I've done Paragon now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something a little bit more grey next time for sure.
Grey's fun.
I'm gonna get on grey. Belladonna was grey. She wasn't evil.
No, she was grey.
She was definitely grey, right?
She did some bad stuff. She did some good stuff too.
Yeah.
She did some morally.
Grey
is fun. Grey is fun. I also think it's about the setting as well. Can be really good. Like, one campaign I want to do soon, which we've talked about before, is like a Game of Thrones style political intrigue.
That would be so good.
That is perfect for grey characters because the world is grey, so you can operate within the sphere of greyness quite happily.
Yeah.
That being said, playing a grey character in a world of good and evil is also exciting.
Could be quite fun.
You tread the line, which is pretty exciting.
Like the grey Jedi in the Fort.
Exactly.
Could be quite fun. Everyone wants to be Revan, don't they? Like the guy that's treading both of them.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and again, it's great stories. That a person with duality, a character I can think of who really like rides that line is like Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
Is that where he's he does lose it and he murders loads of people.
Naughty,
and then also he does sacrifice himself all the time, and he takes bullets for people all the time, and he suffers so much, and he's just a great character.
Yeah,
and
he is great.
I love Hugh Jackman.
Oh no,
I love him.
He's stuck
it's back. I know. I stuck it in a meme recently. I love Hugh Jackman. He's the guy. He's the guy.
He is an awesome guy.
He's the guy. But like, great story.
You got Venom as well. Venom is like another from the Marvel. I love Venom.
Yeah.
I love a good anti-hero. Anti-hero is a great storytelling. The Gunslinger
from
the Dark Tower books.
He's the
total anti-hero. So good. If anyone hasn't read the Dark Tower, get on the Dark Tower.
Awesome character.
So good.
Yeah,
there's loads.
There is.
Tell stories, and that's what I think. If that's why we try and encourage people to play D&D and TTRPGs, is because it's a way that if you don't want to write a novel or you don't want to write a song, you get to tell stories with your friends. You get to tell stories with your friends. It's the only thing that I have seen have done so far where I can joint tell a story with somebody. Like, I can't really sit down with someone and write a novel. I know there are people that do it, but there's only ever 2 of them, really. You can't do 5 people writing a novel, but you can do that with D&D. That is something you can do. 5 people can sit down and tell a story.
And I think what's exciting about it in D&D is that you can, or TTRPG games, is you can have opposing motives in situations of characters, and everyone's a different agent acting in a different situation, and the DM's creating the situation around you. And I think the breadth of storytelling you can do with that, because I know, you hear some people say, "Oh, all we want to do is a hack and slash game," and the story you want to tell is it's a hack and slash video game. You're going around, you're killing skeletons, you're claiming loot. That's what you're doing. It's a dungeon crawl thing. That's cool. That's a cool story.
If you want to do what we've done,
which is epic fantasy, awesome stories. If you want to do gritty street level fantasy,
grimdark,
you can do that as well, and that is also a great story. There's so many genres,
countless,
and themes.
endless stories. There's genuinely, it's endless. There's so many different types of archetypes, structures, genres,
and you can take inspiration. I think I really firmly believe, take all the inspiration you can possibly take.
There's no new stories.
There's not.
There's no new stories.
You can make things your own.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do. We were talking about this. We're gonna do your next campaign is a sort of. In fact, do you want to say what the theme of it is?
Pacific Rim Mech campaign.
Pacific Rim Mech campaign.
Yeah, I want it so bad.
It's an awesome product. It's Pacific Rim.
Because you watch Pacific Rim and you're like, it's giant robots punching giant aliens. Why would you not want that? Yep. What story do you need other than giant robots punching giant aliens?
Yeah,
get me involved.
And that is going to. Oh, it's good. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm going to start that up soon. Actually, I've been talking to a couple of people now.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited. Because we've taken a bit of a hiatus at the moment.
Yeah, we're on a D&D hiatus.
I've not played for a couple months now, and that is awful. It's so hard because you go from telling stories all the time to then not telling stories, and you're in this kind of vacuum, and all your creative juices. It's getting used because I'm becoming a teacher, as I've said in the last episode. And also, we are working on this podcast a lot. We're putting a lot of time into kind of making this as best as we can. But yeah, I want to get back, Sam. Nice. I want to get back in the seat.
I do too. And actually, that brings me to a question I was going to kind of throw at you, really, which is... I'm going to 2 questions. You can pick which one you want.
Okay? Nice choice.
I'm going to give you 2 questions. So first one, what's the favourite story that you've told?
Okay.
Secondly, which is the other option?
Yeah.
Is there any story you wish you'd told?
Countless. Okay. I want to answer both because they're such good questions.
Go for it.
And I'm going to Uno reverse card them and send them straight back at
that's
you.
Cool.
They're great questions, man.
Cool.
There's so many stories I want to tell that other people have already told. I read, there's so many fantastically talented people in this world.
Yeah,
there are so many. The Gunslinger books by the Doctor. I know we spoke about. I read that and go, fantasy sci-fi, but a cowboy gunslinger. Genius.
Yeah, it's genius.
Just
it is
genius.
Completely genius.
So smart, so clever. I wish I had come up with that concept sooner. Space Marines and 40k, the lore of all that. If I could have got my hand on that first, that would have been great.
Yeah.
And then but also some of these are so good that I wouldn't want to write them because though I wouldn't do them as well as these people.
I get what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean? I just wouldn't be able to do it as good as they did. There's so many. those ones, I want to say Tolkien, but I just won't even dare to touch it.
No.
I just wouldn't dare. Like, everyone wants to be Tolkien, but like,
I think the argument is, we've talked about the whole Mount Fuji concept of Tolkien being in everything, is that you have told the Tolkien story, you've just done it so far removed from it being a ring and a journey to Mordor and whatever. So in terms of stories that I wish I told, so I had this idea for a third Cyberpunk campaign, which was pretty cool.
Okay.
It won't come to pass, but I'll talk to you about the idea of it.
Okay, sick.
Is like the xenomorph aliens. Because I was like,
I
what
love
about
that.
a big bad guy that is just is a hive predator and all it wants to do is consume everything? Because is that evil?
Yeah.
Or is it just predating on everything?
That's 40k Tyranids are actually the good guys, right?
It's the Tyranids. Exactly that. It's the Tyranids from 40k. It's just
I love
a
that.
natural force that just overwhelms. Unstoppable. And I thought that would be conceptually really interesting to explore. I was kind of like, how would I do bad guys other than just a chittering alien? I was like, I don't know how I'll do that. So
you could definitely use that. You could not do that in the Cyberpunk universe, but
you could do it anywhere, man.
You could do that. I'd love to see you try. That.
So I was very interested in that story. I thought that would have been very cool.
What's your second story? We'll hit you with the second question, and then because what was your favorite story you've told so far? Because that can include your songs as well, and your it doesn't just have to be your
interesting.
And you've done one shot, so you've done so many things
now. Okay, so this is a cool one. So this is actually not as a DM, but as a player, is my character Dao Feng, who was this.
Yeah,
he was this monk archer guy. So I was playing for those D&D like multi-class nerds. I was playing a Kensei monk. Battlemaster fighter multi-class. So I was a archer guy, and we were kitted out with ridiculous items, and I was the god tier archer, and it was insanely cool.
Yeah.
But I was this race called the Ashen, who are these ancient, they were like the primordial people, basically. But the coming of this ancient evil called Colgrim, the Land Shadow, had actually cursed them, and they basically had visions. So they were immortal, but they'd all go insane after at least about 100 years. So they could keep going forever, but they just never did, because all of them went insane with visions of the coming of Colgrim. And Dao Feng came in actually halfway through the campaign, level 10 to level 20, when Belladonna died. And it was the perfect switch over, and he was this kind of whimsical Mr. Miyagi guy.
Oogway from Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda, exactly. And he progressively was losing his mind. And his whole core concept was that he wanted to kill the big bad because the big bad was the king of his people. And he wanted to bring the mega tyrant down. And his story is that his wife and son his wife had gone insane and had died of the insanity, and then his son had got ill a year or two later, and he just had lost his family, and then he became a monk, and he journeyed out, and that was a real core thing. I didn't want to lose that. And he starts slowly but surely, he became closer and closer to this character called Cyrus, who was a character one of our friends made. Incredible character. And Cyrus was this young man, bright, amazing champion guy, and he really loved Cyrus and thought he was an incredible leader, but also kind of had this, he's my son come again, like I can look after him and I can father him as a in a helpful mentoring sort of way. And by the absolute end of the campaign, he'd reached full insanity to the point that he actually started seeing Cyrus as his son. I know. And there was this bit in the last episode which was just the best RP I've ever been involved with, where he lost it, and he was just like, "We must fight my son. We must fight them." And before this, Cyrus had been going, "It's okay, Dao. It's all right. It's all right." And kind of like, trying to help, you're not going insane. Like, no, come back to reality. And he knew that he was so far gone that Cyrus was just like, "It's okay, father. We can do it." Oh, I know. And that moment of fatherhood, and there was a little bit of like a dementia theme, which I didn't want to like ham up loads, but it was that idea of losing your mind, but still holding on to parts, and like that was just the most beautiful moment of roleplay I've ever had. I cried.
I was there.
Everyone was tearing up.
I almost teared up thinking about it as you were talking about it. I was just like, oh God, that was so...
It was incredible.
Because it had been that build-up, and then when he just was like, I know, Father.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then you just like pulled your bow up, and it was just like, oh my God.
It was unreal.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was unreal. And
you're right, that was beautiful. That storytelling was so
and
good.
like that wasn't just me that made that great. I had a contributing factor, but the people around you and your players that you're playing with,
that's D&D though, right?
That's D&D.
That's
collective storytelling. That's it.
You and a friend were able to tell this incredible story of an ancient monk who had lost his family, was slowly going insane, and by the end saw this young champion hero as his own son. And by the end, when his mind was breaking, he was able to draw you back into the fight to save the universe by calling you his dad. And it was just the most emotional thing we've ever...
insane. Yeah.
But it was so beautiful, and that's what you can do with D&D. That's the stories you can tell together. We have to end it there. I don't think anything's going to beat that was great. Thank you for sharing that as well, Sam.
No worries. Thank you, man. Really glad we got to talk about that, actually.
It was really nice. We should talk about some of our other times as well, because that was really lovely to hear. It was nice to hear that. I hope you guys like listening to that as well, because honestly, it was such a beautiful moment. And that's what you can do. You can do that too. You can tell those stories.
Yeah.
Little call to action.
Absolutely.
Please like, comment, subscribe. Tell us your most... What were the questions you asked again, Sam? It was
what was your favourite story that you told? Is there a story you wish you told? Just if you're a DM, make sure your players don't see it.
Go
incognito mode on the comments. Make a bot account.
But
make an alias.
How would you answer those questions? We'd love to see your responses.
Hear that. We really want to hear that.
And follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. If you want the memes, which we love, get on them. And we'll see you very soon. Hope you're enjoying season 2, guys. We are having a lot of fun recording it.
Loads of fun. I want to say one disclaimer as well. I don't know why my camera keeps going blue, but it's been doing this for the last episode we recorded, and it's very odd that it keeps doing that.
It keeps doing that. Mine went out of focus a couple times too.
And I'll wear some blue faceplate, like the Blue Man Group.
Full Blue Man Group. Oh my God.
I'll do it. Blue Man Group.
I'll do it. Don't tempt me. Amazing. Awesome.
Amazing.
Right. See you next time, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you later.